Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's a on a mission. On your left is Corstian. On your right is me. You could probably tell because I'm opening my mouth. I'm on speaking. So I'm Josh. Um, Welcome back to episode 64. Um, it's been a while. Like I don't think Corstian and I anticipated that this day would mark about a year since we started the podcast, which is kind of crazy to think about. Um, Obviously it's been a little bit tough getting the viewership up, but we're working on like multiple ways to do that and like finalizing a system. We're starting to roll out videos, so um, please continue sending your support. We really appreciate it. It gives us more confidence to talk about football, talk about the game we love, and then from the basketball side as we're looking to expand in multiple sports as well. Um, Horseon, how was your past week? How did you feel about that free agency wave that just occurred in like the middle of last week and then beyond, and then all of a sudden
Um,
all these trades and all these signings take place?
yeah, I think it was kind of like a fun second wave of free agency that we got. Obviously, like by or at least the point that we talked last week, there was still quite a lot of I think big name free agents still available, and there still are guys available that I think are going to be pretty huge signings going into this next season. But
Justin
I think we
Simmons
just
still
knew.
out there.
Yeah, so it was all kind of just inevitable that we'd see another kind of big wave, but yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun just to kind of see the news kind of trickle in. Like there's about like one big thing that happens each day or every other day it seems. So um, I don't know, it's kind of fun and it's easier to keep track compared to the start of free agency. Obviously, when it feels like every like 10 minutes a new big thing was happening, and I was like, I feel like I'm missing half of these moves, but it's kind of easier to follow it now.
Gosh, I tell you, like that first and second day of tampering period, I thought I was like losing my mind. I was like,
hmm
even like backtracking the past week when we were getting ready for this episode, I didn't even know Bobby Wagner got signed to the Commanders. So
hmm
like, I definitely missed a couple moves. It's gonna take us a while to be fresh with these teams. That's why like during the summertime we like to do a deep dive after the draft because that's when like most teams are like kind of solidified there. But it is kind of fun to see like how a team like builds their philosophy on paper from year to year. So that's really the exciting part. Um, if you guys know me on the podcast, I've been talking about the Bears situation pretty much since the end of the year. Um, my if I was running the team, I would have kept Justin Fields. I would have targeted Marvin Harrison. I would have got a Dunze. Um, but that was before
hmm
like I knew the Bears traded a fourth round pick for Keenan Allen. And
hmm
then like 2 days ago, find out that Justin Fields gets traded to the Steelers, in which will become a sixth round pick
hmm
but could become a fourth round pick in
hmm
2025 if Justin Fields plays, I think it's 50% of the plays or something like
hmm
that, or some metric. It's a
Yeah.
metric tied like um transaction there as far as like what draft
Uh-huh.
pick the Bears get.
Yeah.
But talk to me about what you think about this trade and what it means for both the Bears and the Steelers.
Um. Yeah, it seemed like whether it was Justin Fields or a new quarterback, it seemed like they were definitely gearing up for um some big play at quarterback. I think the Keenan Allen thing really cemented a trade happening in my head where it was like because like if they had music. I don't know. You keep on talking about having like how cool it would be to have three wide receivers elite and then like also Brock Bowers on the team, and I'm like it's cool for like a Super Bowl contending team, but I feel like there's still a decent amount of holes that the Bears want to address, and it's like if you're addressing those positions there, and then I feel like you're kind of bringing in kind of like a new feel to the team. Because it's definitely a different team than when Justin Fields first got onto the first was drafted to the Bears, and so I think it's kind of a change of scenery might have been kind of good for both parties here, and like. So I know Chicago fans and like the locker room, I think really liked Justin Fields, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like he had his like big play moments, but kind of like looking at some of the stats. Apparently, he had a pretty low like, uh, I guess on like important, like broken down plays or like important plays. Like he had a pretty low success rate, and like it seemed like some of the issues that he had when
As
he
far as
first,
passing the ball, right?
yeah, as far as passing the ball. And so it's kind of like the issues as a passer he had when he got drafted really didn't improve as much as I think you'd hope for your quarterback over the course of this many seasons. And so I think that's a part of the reason why they decided to, trade him away. And now obviously it seems like they'll probably be drafting Caleb Williams here, but that's kind of my take on it. And I mean, they got all the pieces, for making it easy for a rookie quarterback to come in, but I think,
Oh, you could say Caleb Williams. It's fine. I think it's a foregone conclusion at this point.
mm-hmm.
Unless, wait, I should stop myself. I should stop myself because in 2017, I thought they were going to draft Deshaun Watson,
Mm-hmm.
and I was mightily surprised when they traded up, got
Mm-hmm.
excited because they're trading up to get Deshaun, and then
Mm-hmm.
they draft Mitch Trubisky. So I will I will not say they're going to draft Caleb Williams 100%. I
Mm-hmm.
will move it down to a small 97% sure they're going to
Yeah.
draft Caleb Williams because it is the Bears we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. And so, yeah. And then I think it's kind of weird how he went to the Steelers. I mean, I think he'll have playing time sooner than later with the Steelers as well. Um, but apparently he had like turned down other trade offers to other teams. Like he wasn't willing to play for other teams. And I'm like, you accept to be a backup for a year? Like, I don't know. But um, yeah. It'll be. I hope Justin Fields has success. During in the year he got drafted, I was really high on him. I thought, he was one of the better quarterbacks. I still think like
Me too.
looking at that class still, I think he is just behind Trevor Lawrence. In all honesty, like in terms of the start of that college season, everyone was like, oh, it's T Law is 1A and Justin Fields is 1B kind of guy. And then the draft happened, and all of a sudden he fell behind Zach Wilson and Trey Lance, and you're like, oh, okay. But then you come back now, and it seems like it was very much a Trevor Lawrence was the top guy, and Justin Fields is probably the number 2 guy in that class.
Yeah. I think this is a classic case where it's a nuanced situation and complex situation because
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Poles didn't draft Justin Fields. Matt Eberflus didn't come in and okay to draft Justin Fields. They came in the year after, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't even handpick this quarterback. They had to kind of like look at his abilities and make the most of it. And I think towards the end of seasons, the past 2 years, they've done a great job of that. Um, I think from my vantage point, looking at the season, I saw the team play a lot better. And I didn't think it was a Justin Fields issue. I think it was, to your larger point, the team around him.
Mm-hmm.
And I even saw improvement in the offensive line and the defense as a unit to be
Mm-hmm.
confident, like, okay, if you just get receivers and maybe a better tight end than Cole Kmet, you got something there to prove that Justin Fields is a
Mm-hmm.
top quarterback in this league. I still think
Yeah.
he has the talent. If you don't, just go and watch him against Clemson when
Mm-hmm.
everybody had counted Ohio State out in that game, and he tore it up with bruised
Mm-hmm.
ribs, broken ribs, and everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're getting when you're getting Justin Fields, the passer. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like he was just making strides towards that. So that's what makes this whole situation complicated because it's like
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to get rid of Justin Fields because of what he could bring to the table. And then from like a trade standpoint, you want to get as much value as possible for the player.
Mm-hmm.
But because the locker room, because the fans love Justin Fields so much, you don't want to trade him to a situation where he's going to be unhappy
Mm-hmm.
or like do wrong by him, right? Because the Bears are also trying to build the culture they've been building successfully for the back half of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So from a cultural perspective, I applaud Ryan Poles for trading him to the destination he wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Did that kind of handicap them a little bit as far as getting the draft capital? Yes, it absolutely did. I was kind of distraught. I was like, if you're getting a 6th round pick for Justin Fields, at that point, I would keep him and I would
Mm-hmm.
draft Marvin Harrison Jr.
Mm-hmm.
because the whole point to trading Justin Fields is to get enough capital to help build around
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Williams. And I don't
Yeah.
think they got enough to help build around him.
Yeah.
Um, but the Keenan Allen trade happened, and I was just like, oh wait, they could they could still get a quality wide receiver at 9. But the way Adunze has been, like, climbing up boards and the way he's performed at the combine, I don't think he's in the cards anymore. I obviously don't think Marvin Harrison's in the cards anymore.
Mhm.
I would hope for Neighbors to fall, um, because I don't think Brock Bowers, the talent, is going down that far either. So that's the only guy I would have hope for. Otherwise, they're probably trading down and recouping more picks or, like, picking, like, an edge rusher offensive line. It's
Mhm.
kind of it's kind of like 3 positions I see in my mind the Bears going for at that point. But my point
Mhm.
being here with the Justin Fields saga is, like, Matt Nagy didn't do a good job building around him. Ryan Pace drafted him to save face, and it was a good draft pick, definitely a good draft pick. But I think at the start of his development, the Bears failed him, and that had an effect on the course of his career so far.
Mhm.
And I think the Bears are trying to make sure that doesn't happen with Caleb Williams by
Mhm.
getting out ahead of it with the right regime, trading for
Mhm.
Keenan Allen, continuing to invest in that offensive line. You've seen
Mhm.
the Ryan Bates trade, the signings they made on the depth of that offensive line. That's not
Mhm.
something the Bears would normally do. So while I wasn't a fan of losing Justin Fields, Caleb Williams is a hell of a player to get. They
Mhm.
should draft him, and I think they made the right decision at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Um, and sorry, I know I'm going on for a tangent here. Last point as far as like the Steelers, because this is like literally the lowest risk for them. I think they're spending like a combined um 2 million, 2 to 4 million or something like
Mhm.
that between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields.
Mhm.
Like they're basically a title contender if they try and figure out a replacement for Deontay Johnson. And I think that might be Calvin Austin. It might be somebody they'll draft. But
Yeah.
like you're in a no lose situation here if you're Pittsburgh. Um,
Mhm.
and for Justin Fields, I actually think he's going to thrive under Arthur Smith's system because Arthur Smith's a really great offensive coordinator. He's just not a good head coach, in my opinion.
Mhm.
But the reason he got hired was his offensive prowess. And I think as a head coach, like trying to manage all this offensive talent he just had too much of responsibilities, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Mike Tomlin's probably one of the best coaches to play for in the league. Best place to develop. Like Justin Fields tried to model his game after Russell Wilson. So what better than to play behind him and see how he takes control and like use his deep ball ability, which is one of Justin Fields' strengths. It wasn't utilized as much, and the Bears didn't have the
Mhm.
talent to maximize that. I think Pittsburgh's a different story. I think it was a great spot because it's in the other conference from the Bears and in a conference that's loaded with elite quarterbacks. So I think from the Bears' mind too, it's also awesome that like you won't have to worry about facing Justin Fields in the Super Bowl
Mhm.
every time and like be like and lose to him and then be like we could have kept him.
Mhm.
From that perspective, that was because he has to compete against Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow in his own division
Mhm.
right now. Um, and then who knows if Deshaun Watson brings it back up. And then that's just scratching the surface. Who knows what's going to happen with Trevor Lawrence? AFC South is going to be insane. I still believe in Anthony Richardson. You saw what CJ Stroud did. Then we're not even talking about the team that went back to back in the Super Bowl.
Mhm.
Like, like you got to deal with them too. And then the Chargers are coming with Jim Harbaugh. So it's going to be very hard for Justin Fields to win multiple championships and make the Bears regret trading him.
Mhm.
Um, like just from like the optics right now. Um, but I think the way it was set up was not ideal,
Mhm.
and it's kind of like a what could have been if you just built around this guy properly.
Yeah. Yeah. But I did think it was interesting, kind of just like with the trade valuation that the Bears did get. It seems like most of the league does see Fields, at least the teams that need a quarterback, don't, I guess, see him as more of like a backup in terms of like draft capital, which is kind of an interesting insight there. But I do think that at this stage in both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields' career, I think Justin Fields is an objectively better quarterback. In the fact that when like pressure starts to build, he does a lot better job at stepping up into the pocket to make his throws. Where Russell Wilson oftentimes like rolls out, which I'd rather have my quarterback step up and then scramble rather than like his instinct to kind of roll out into potential pressure, which I do think is good by Justin Fields, at least from what I've seen from him so far in his career.
Yeah, no, that's an important point. Like that's the first thing Justin Herbert like mentioned, like on what helped him as a quarterback, like stepping
Mm-hmm.
up in the pocket and not like
Mm-hmm.
stepping back, because then you're creating like clear pass rush lanes for the defenders. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the problem with Russell Wilson is his athletic ability leaned on is like diminished.
Mm-hmm.
So like he has to learn to play without that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think his game is not as versatile enough without that
Mm-hmm.
athletic ability. Like 10 years ago, Russell Wilson, absolutely give me him. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's a game wrecker from the ground. But
Yeah.
like that's it's important to note like how he handles that so Justin Fields can see like, oh, that could be me in 10 years. Maybe I'm not like a 4-4 guy, maybe I'm a 4-7 guy. How do I
Mm-hmm.
manage that? Because that 3 seconds is a difference like on the
Mm-hmm.
field.
Yeah.
And I think he can learn a lot from Russell Wilson. He
Mm-hmm.
is a Super Bowl winning quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
and he can learn a lot from the culture. Steelers have like one of the
Mm-hmm.
best cultures in the league. This is a great environment for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, because like Russell Wilson last season, I think he had the lowest rate of like passes over the middle of the field. Um, which is obviously, it's a big. I mean, if you look at all the winning teams in the league, like they're pretty elite at throwing just across, like between the hash marks and,
San
uh,
Francisco is notorious for that.
yeah, and like all the big plays from the Chiefs, it's Travis Kelsey in the middle of the field that they hits him square in like the chest, but, and so I think Justin Field is, he's better at that. At least I think that is maybe one thing he's improved on throughout his career, at least at the NFL stage. Um, So it's nice to see he has like a little bit of improvement, but hopefully, yeah, with the Steelers, he can really jumpstart that and, uh, really take that next step with just his processing, footwork, and everything, and just consistency.
No, that's definitely fair for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as a Bears fan, I'm kind of in a weird spot about it because the entire fandom was divided. Like,
Mm-hmm.
should it be Justin Fields or Caleb Williams? Justin Fields or Caleb Williams? And it's kind of like there was no clear cut answer with this. There's like two different ways you could build a team.
Mm-hmm.
And um, again, as good of a prospect as Caleb Williams is, he's not 100% a sure thing. We're projecting confidence that he's really good based on his
Mm-hmm.
tape, like the generational prospect.
Mm-hmm.
But the Bears are taking a risk by moving this trade because then you're saying we're assuming one, Caleb Williams is the prospect that everybody's talking about, and two, we have the infrastructure around him to maximize him. When it has been a solid while since the Bears have had a great quarterback, so
Mm-hmm.
like if you want to count Jay Cutler, fine, he had his moments there, but like it's really on Poles and
Mm-hmm.
Eberflus now. Like there are two ways it's gonna go on. You've been like, would you want to keep Justin Fields and then pass on CJ Stroud and Caleb Williams and potentially Jaden Daniels back
Mm-hmm.
to back years? Or would you want to trade him? Take your stab at the quarterback while you have the position to do
Mm-hmm.
so, and then build from there. So
Yeah.
um yeah, it was a complicated situation. Um Personally, they definitely did right by the player here, which is 100% good. But from like a strategic
Mm-hmm.
standpoint, I'd have probably kept Fields because you don't get the value right now from the quarterback market.
Mm-hmm.
And if you wanted to trade him, I would have held him until training camp because unfortunately injuries happen. And for a team with like a superstar quarterback that goes down, that would have been a perfect situation for Justin Fields to step in. Like look at the Rams when Matthew Stafford went down. Like
Mm-hmm.
um like it, there's a possibility of that happening. So like strategically standpoint, we could have kept him until training camp and then see what happens from the quarterback situations and then like pounce when you have the chance.
Mm-hmm.
But I appreciate that they did right by him as a player for the culture, and I think they're in a position where they can do that because they have the number one pick. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
alrighty, I think we rambled on, or I rambled down a lot on the subject. So we'll talk about some free agency moves. Since March 13th, since our last podcast episode was on the 12th. You guys haven't, I would check that out. We have a live reaction to Danielle Hunter. Well, I was about to say Daniel Hunter. Sorry, Danielle Hunter. He got signed to the Texans, 2 years, 51 million, blockbuster deal at the time. It was great to react to that. Um, what are some of the free agent moves and trades that you liked since we last talked?
Um, I thought the Saints made a couple good moves. Obviously, the most recent one being they signed Chase Young to that 1 year deal, which I think is it's kind of just like it's a big prove it deal, kind of see if he can continue producing. But then they also did sign Willie Gay from the Chiefs as well, and so I was surprised. They're always in like cap hell. It's always a nightmare for them, but they always seem to make it work. And so I think those are just two good uh, acquisitions, at least from the Saints, that I think bolster their defense in hopes that they have a bit more of a consistent offense this season.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about 3 players in a group.
Mm-hmm.
Another recent signing. Corstian and I found out like half an hour before we copped on that Mike Williams got signed to the Jets. So I'm going to be talking about the Jets moves. I think they've done a great job on reshaping the offensive line. They traded for Morgan Moses. Say that 3 times fast. I cannot speak English today. And then the other tackle spot, they got Tyron Smith from the Cowboys. Huge upside there. I don't know if they still have Becton on the roster, but what depth they have from the tackle perspective. And then you pair Mike Williams. This is the type of guy they need across from Garrett Wilson. Like Al Nazar wasn't cutting it. Mecole Hardman's definitely not cutting it. So like, I'm glad they got a bona fide wide receiver to go opposite of Garrett Wilson. Like, I would draft both of them in fantasy. They're going to eat, especially with the type of quarterback that Rodgers is. You're going to protect him a lot more, assuming he's still going to play football next season. So, I like what the Jets did from free agency and trades.
Yeah, I did like those moves as well. Obviously, the big concern is hopefully they all stay healthy. I know all 3 of those acquisitions have had injury concerns in the past, and especially like Tyron Smith. I think it's been a couple years since he's played an entire season, like from start to finish. But obviously, he's still, when he's healthy, he's one of the best. Same with Morgan Moses. He's also a pretty good tackle when he's in, and same with Mike Williams if he's healthy. It'll be an interesting season for the Jets. I think it'll be nice that Mike Williams doesn't have to be relied on as the wide receiver one. I know he wasn't that with the Chargers, but I mean, it really is Garrett Wilson's the guy, and so it's kind of just like another number 2 role for him, which I think is kind of just been what he has had as a career so far. And then let's see other moves. Obviously, Colts signed Joe Flacco, Joe Cool. But 2 other moves that I thought were pretty interesting were the Eagles signing Devin White. I know they had, or I guess they got back CJ Gardner-Johnson as well, but I know a lot of people like kind of laughed at the Eagles for losing some of their defensive talent. But
did you see CJ DJ's old tweet?
No,
it was like it's like the worst part about the Eagles is their fans.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
He got signed back to the Eagles. That was pretty funny to see because he's gonna have to deal with those fans again.
Yeah,
that's a good pick. I saw the Devin White move and I was like, the Eagles had a lot of inside linebacker tackling problems. They really missed Edwards and then Moreau, or Moreau might have stayed on the Eagles for a bit, but they just missed like the disciplined tackling that they had from their Super Bowl year. And Devin White's definitely going to help out with that regard.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting how they use Devin White because like his like all pro kind of years were the ones where they kind of had him in like specific positionings. They had specific assignments for him, but then this last season the Buccaneers kind of let him roam more, which caused a lot more like blown coverages to take place and kind of just like he was out of place from like specific plays, which ended up hurting their own defense. And so I think if they have specific game plan strategy for Devin White and not just letting him roam around the defense, I think that's where we'll see him really play a huge factor for this Eagles. And so it'll be interesting to see that. But I think there's
just a quick point on Devin White while you're getting him up, the other player up. And he's in the perfect position with Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio knows how to like maximize the amount of players like he has on this roster. Like Devin White's a great guy. Like if he's attacking the ball and the defense is not going to suffer when that happens, because like when he comes up, like you could easily throw a tight end or a receiver behind him whenever that happens. So like it's like you got to time the blitz as well with Devin White, and he'll be really effective because he's one of the fastest linebackers in the league. Like you're not going to outrun him.
Yeah. What's interesting is Vic Fangio was kind of like sort of trashing Devin White during when he was during that year's draft class. He said that he wasn't like good enough to be drafted like even at like the 10th or 11th pick, or whatever the Broncos had, and he's like, I don't want him there. And I'm like, now you're the defensive coordinator for this guy, and you're paying some big bucks for him. But the other big signing, but the other big signing that I was looking at was Marquise Brown. That was one I was not happy to see, but it happened, so it is what it is.
I was surprised he went for 11 million.
Mhm.
11 million. Like this guy was a really good receiver with the card. Like he has like, I was surprised the Cardinals didn't keep him. Like great receiving option, and like in the situation he's coming up in, like yeah, the Chiefs just got better from the receiving position, and that was their only weakness last year. Led the league in drops, penalties. Like he's gonna bring consistency to that offense, and that's the one thing they were lacking from the receiver spot. So their efficiency is about to go way up with their offense. So
like you said, Chiefs' weakness was receiver. They may have had like other misses here and there, but it was that opening. I just remember that opening game with all those dropped passes from Kadarius Toney, and like literally he being almost the sole reason that the Chiefs lost against the Lions. The opening game, like you remember
even
that
Pat's game, he dropped it, and then he got returned for a pick six. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me,
like, and like in the video, it's like it hits him like square in the hands too, and then you see just like bounce right out of his hands behind him. Brian Branch, it just goes and intercepts it for that tutty, and
that
there's a
might have
couple
been
other
one of the
drop
worst
passes.
takes I've had last year, dude. Because like the whole reason why I love Kadarius Toney was his yards after the catch. But like you're not getting any of those yards after if you don't catch the ball. There's a reason why it's called yak. You gotta catch the ball. So that's the main issue. I'm surprised you didn't mention Eric Armstead to the Jaguars. I really love that move. Considering you got like Josh Allen already on the team, and the defense needs an influx. The defensive line talent, like Jaguars defense was underrated last year. They were solid, like for the first half of the season, and then it just collapsed. And I think this was a huge move for their offensive line, especially when you have to go against Anthony Richardson and CJ Stroud now. Like that was a huge. I didn't like their Gabe Davis signing. I was like, what are you guys doing? I would have rather kept Calvin Ridley. But like regardless, on the defensive side of the ball, great get to get him.
Yeah. Well, so with that Calvin Ridley thing though, if the Jaguars had re-signed him, the trade pick that they used to get him from the Falcons would have gone up higher.
For the Falcons.
Yeah, the Falcons would have gotten a better draft pick from the Jaguars had they re-signed him.
Okay. Gotcha.
So I think it was like a round or two advancement in like the draft pick. So like I think the Jaguars wished they could have, but I don't think they thought it was worth the draft capital plus the cap space to keep him, which I think is.
And I think the other side of it is like Calvin Ridley just wasn't consistent enough in the role he was in the Jaguars to warrant that. Like everybody all bashed like Christian Kirk when he got that contract because it's just like what are the like from the Jaguars side, like what are the Jaguars doing? They just ruined the wide receiver market. But he's been quietly the engine that like the Jaguars have been like running on. There's a reason why I said like sometimes Calvin Ridley would be the 1A and sometimes it might be Christian Kirk because the types of looks Christian Kirk would get is like Trevor Lawrence's strengths. They just had great chemistry. And this kind of got to the point of like, why do you need Calvin Ridley when you have Christian Kirk? And then you can kind of just build around Christian Kirk from there. So I think that's what they might have been thinking with this move too. But the draft capital one is definitely probably like a business move that like that incentivizes the Jaguars to make that move. Yeah. I like Ridley's landing spot in Tennessee. I always thought like he was a great 1B option. Because if you look at Atlanta, he was playing second fiddle with Jones and he blew up then. And I think playing outside of Hopkins, he's going to be back to Calvin Ridley stuff because he has Hopkins on the other side. It's kind of like a Devonta Smith, AJ Brown situation. So I'm actually high on Calvin Ridley this year, even with a worse quarterback. I think this he could put up some numbers because of the types of spacing you'll get.
Yeah. One last piece from me. obviously the one big news piece I think we didn't cover yet was the Aaron Donald news.
Oh, 100%. I'm gonna create a announcement for that right now. That
Yeah.
happened a while ago, in between when we covered, but
Hmm.
that was something
Yeah.
I overlooked. So I'm sorry,
Hmm.
Aaron Donald. I still love you, but
Hmm.
let's talk about that.
Yeah. Um. Obviously, a huge blow to the Rams defense. He was the defense, you know. He's probably the best player of my like football conscious life. Um, I think you can argue, you know, like JJ Watt is in there, but I kind of knew more about JJ Watt towards the latter half of his career, whereas I got to experience the entirety of Aaron Donald's career, and so literally, you know, superstar from start to finish. He probably could have gone a couple of years, but I know after the Rams had won the Super Bowl, I know he'd contemplated retirement, but he decided to keep playing. I would have been cool to see him play one more. I think the Rams could have really made another, you know, playoff run this upcoming season, but obviously he has pretty much all you can ask for from, you know, a defensive player. Um, and so I mean, what a great career. Uh, yep.
Yeah, I mean, if you just want to see how much of an effect Aaron Donald had, I would just go to one video, and it's him rushing Geno Smith, and Geno Smith mic'd up yelling, "Oh my gosh!"
Hmm.
right before Aaron Donald hits him, and he just like threw that anywhere he could, and it's one of my favorite mic'd up moments because it just
Hmm.
shows how unprepared quarterbacks really are for Aaron Donald, which is crazy to think about. Like in a league where all the rules are driven towards the quarterback and offenses, and it being hard to even like sack a quarterback without a rushing the passer penalty, Aaron Donald put up historic numbers from a defensive tackle spot that's not known for sacks at all. Undersized, like got the best of Kelsey, Jason Kelsey, offensive lineman.
Hmm.
Like it's the offensive, like that was an offensive guard and center's like dream when they saw him retire. Like they're like, we
Hmm.
don't have to face this guy anymore. Oh my goodness. Great career. Like I think he would have been a Hall of Famer in any era, really.
Hmm.
Like even with the Lawrence Taylor, Reggie White era, like he was that talented.
Hmm.
It's rare to see a guy that's smaller, um, practice with knives to like work on his defensive line moves. Like, have you ever heard a player just like try to shut off knives to get past them? Like in a
Hmm.
workout? Like who trains with knives, man? Like
Yeah.
that's just ridiculous. Like he was just a one-on-one like guy from a defensive tackle player. Like
Hmm.
as a homer, I would probably say like when Khalil Mack like got traded to the Bears, that was like my favorite like defensive line moment. Even more so than when Julius Peppers got signed by the Bears. But like
Hmm.
objectively, Aaron Donald is every bit as good as Khalil Mack, better, and like he should have won an MVP if just like JJ Watt should have. He was that special.
Yeah, and then also I think about like all the pictures you can find online of like him getting like triple teamed or quadruple teamed by
And he'd
offenses.
still win. He'd still
Yeah,
win.
but like it's like I can't think like again. There's like JJ Watt, but outside of like you know those like basically the best of the best, like you don't see that like almost ever where offenses are devoting like three guys to stop one pass rusher basically. Um, yeah, I'm glad I was able to experience the entirety of the Aaron Donald career. You know, because like defensive players like him don't come around too often. Again, like we were saying,
He
else.
won the Super Bowl if you think about it.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
that one pressure on Burrow, I think he was trying to hit a chase, but
Hmm.
like he single-handedly stopped the possession and probably the game-winning possession in that game.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's just like I mean, that's a game-defining play. And like
Hmm.
he's not Aaron I'm not trying to say Aaron Donald, like that's what made his career, winning
Hmm.
the Super Bowl. Like just pay attention to the past 3 minutes of this conversation. Like us just raving about him. Like unbelievable talent, unbelievable player. Like I would have loved to see him play longer, but he deserves to hang it up right now.
Hmm.
He's living pretty.
Yeah. Yeah. He's easily up there with like in my top three defensive players all time with J.J. Watt and like Lawrence Taylor. I think Lawrence Taylor. I didn't get to experience him play, but from what I hear, it's like he's probably the best defensive player of all time. Literally every number 58 in the NFL is like I wanted to be like LT, so I chose 58. Uh, but yeah, I think Aaron, those three guys are like just absolute legends, and we got to see this one.
Think about like Von Miller's
Mm-hmm.
like career year on the Broncos when they won that Super Bowl on the
Mm-hmm.
Panthers, and just channel that into Aaron Donald, multiply it by 2, and that
Mm-hmm.
was him basically every year of his career. He's
Yeah.
just ridiculous, man. Ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
All
Yeah. So
right.
that was my last bit right there.
Okay. Sweet. With that note, we have to do a hard pivot to JJ McCarthy.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of buzz around him. A lot of teams like love him. Um, a lot of mocks from what I've seen have had some combination of Drake May, Caleb Williams, and like Jaden Daniels all go in the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of a bold statement here, but do you see JJ McCarthy going in the top 5 of this draft?
I think it's kind of hard to see it. I wouldn't be surprised if he makes top 10. I think there's room for like decent trades there, but like realistically, I think his best spot would be the Cardinals trading back. Uh, but then it's like the Cardinals with losing all that receiver talent on offense. I don't see why you would pass on Marvin Harrison. Like you lost. If they had Marquise uh, Brown,
Mm.
I could envision. Okay, maybe they trade back because they got their. He's like only 26, right? So it's like you got your at least your main wide receiver, and you can bank on one of the top guys falling
But
to the
they
second.
lost him and Rondale Moore as well. They lost both of them.
Yeah, and so it's like you lost your guys. You still got your quarterback. You got a decent tight end, but uh, receiver again, like just kind of became their instant offensive weakness. And so I think they stay there at 4. But then at 5, you have the Jets, right? Or no, they have the Chargers, which I'm looking
Chargers.
at a mock draft. But then it's like Chargers, I guess, are another team that could trade down. But um, with, I guess, the loss of their top 2 receivers, like, are they really going Quentin Johnston as their
I think they're
number
going
one?
to Doomsday there, bro.
Right? So like
Yeah.
they're not gonna not draft a wide receiver. And if you have an option to get, one of the top guys, I feel like I don't risk, like a fancy trade down to be like, oh, I think I can sneakily get, wide receiver 6 who's still a first round caliber guy when you have one of the big 3 of Neighbors, Udunze, and Harrison potentially being the guy to fall to you. And so that's why I think that it seems unlikely. I think a trade up would require an absolute haul. Um, and I don't know. I think it's just a lot of like hype of we're just excited for the draft and quarterbacks always get hyped up. I still think
Yeah.
that I still think that he's probably going to get drafted in the first round. It's not going to be a Malik Willis situation where he falls to like the 3rd round. Um,
Man, Malik Willis be catching strays from out of nowhere now from
bro, he's
Corstian all the
oh
time, man.
dude, like, but I remember seeing mock drafts of like because Willis was like mocked to be like a top 5 pick half the time, like half the mock drafts that I saw. The amount of
Mm.
mock drafts that I saw him going like number 6 to the Raiders or something was ridiculous. Just for him to fall all the way to the 3rd, like
Yeah, I mean that QB class wasn't that great. I think that was the Kenny Pickett class, right?
yeah,
Not a lot of good options there, and then it's
uh-huh.
crazy how many options there are here. I'm gonna say yes. I really think so.
Hmm.
Um, and it's kind of a counterpoint to you because I think this wide receiver class, we've already
Hmm.
seen the media about it, but just from watching the players play, it's probably it's probably going to be a historic class. I think it's even going to be better than 2014,
Hmm.
like the wide receiver class. If you think about like Allen Robinson,
Hmm.
OBJ,
Hmm.
like and then a bunch of Calvin Benjamin, like not saying that Calvin Benjamin's like on the level of wide receiver ones consistently, but like
Hmm.
they all had like good years that made them worth the investment of like
Hmm.
in that draft class where they were drafted, right? And I think this class will surpass it when I'm looking at guys like
Hmm.
Keon Coleman, Xavier Worthy, um, but keep talking about Lab McConkey.
Hmm.
Like these are guys that probably going in the first round and stuff. And like that's not even scratching the surface on like some of these wide receiving talents. Um, I think there's like 20 or 25 of these guys that are going to be significant contributors. I'm not
Mhm.
calling them all wide receiver ones. Probably think it's going to be like 5 or 6, which is a ton. Like that's how stored. Like I think there are 5 or 6 that are going to be wide receiver ones from this class,
Mhm.
and then the rest are probably going to be like either 1Bs or wide receiver twos.
Mhm.
Like, and that's really good to see out of a draft class. So for teams like the Cardinals and the Chargers, yeah, you would love to have a Marvin Harrison or a Dunze. But if you're the
Mhm.
Chargers, you're like, we need to plan out how this is going to look without Keenan Allen or Mike Williams. Like, maybe we need to accumulate more picks. Or if I'm Jim Harbaugh, I'm like, Joe Alt is sitting right there. I'm a guy that's notorious for like building my game off my offensive lines and defensive lines in the run game. I might not even take receiver because of how deep the class. I might take it in the second or third round, and I can see them taking Joe Alt or trading back to grab receiver like another offensive line they like. I think
Mhm.
Jackson Powers Johnson, really good center, getting a lot of buzz right now, out of Oregon. Like that's another guy the Chargers
Mhm.
could use. But my point is, I could see JJ McCarthy go in the top 5. After all, Trey Lance and Zach Wilson were drafted top 3. Okay, so
Mhm.
um, I could see Washington taking him because of the upside on the ground. Um, I could see New England taking him,
Mhm.
or I could see a team that trades up from their current spots, keyword just spots here, to 4 and 5, and that team is the Minnesota Vikings. I
Mhm.
think Minnesota is going to try their hardest to go up to 4 or 5 to grab a guy like JJ McCarthy. And the only reason the Cardinals and the Chargers would trade down is because the amount of picks that Minnesota's going to send their way is too great to pass up on.
Mhm.
And I think that's a team where I could see Kevin O'Connell be like, the upside is like tremendous with this guy. I already have Sam
Mhm.
Darnold, so I don't have to start him right away. But just to give me a chance to establish my own quarterback, and I don't know if I'll get a chance if I'm just sitting at 11 and he'll be there because
Mhm.
then like Tennessee, like the Giants could restart at quarterback. Like
Mhm.
I'm like the Giants could even trade up with the Cardinals or the Chargers, 1 or 2
Mhm.
spots. Because the Chargers and the Cardinals are thinking, oh, if the Giants are trading up, they're going for a quarterback. We're still
Mhm.
going to get like a Dunze or Marvin Harrison, so we're fine trading
Mhm.
1 or 2 spots down. So the Vikings are the big team to watch out for because they have the capital to do it,
Mhm.
like with the 11th and the 27th picks. So like 2 first round picks are pretty enticing for a team. But like the Giants are sitting right there at 6 too. So those are 2 teams I could see realistically
Mhm.
trade up to grab a guy like JJ McCarthy in the top 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Low key though, if a team's trading up to like a top like number 4 or 5, from 11 or whatever, I feel like 3 first round picks is still in play probably, and I don't know. That's just my thoughts on it. Still, even like the Vikings do have the most room to move up, but I think trading in the top 5 is just so much capital you have to give up.
I mean, but hey, if you believe in this guy, in JJ McCarthy,
Mm-hmm.
you do it. You do it
Mm-hmm.
because it's worth the risk. Like
Mm-hmm.
best case scenario, you get a guy that's gonna help you compete for championships for 10 to 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly the kind of guy you want on your team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like worst case scenario, on his rookie deal, you just restart the wagon.
Yeah.
But
Well, worst
like
case
if you really
scenario,
believe
you're
in
out
this
of the.
guy, you're not thinking of the worst case scenario. You're thinking we have to get this guy. Otherwise, we're gonna regret this as a team. We're all getting fired.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Well, the worst case scenario is you're out of the running for 3 years and you probably lose Justin Jefferson to free agency and you have to do a full reset.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I
yeah.
mean, isn't that why they got Sam Darnold though? To at least get a placeholder for a guy like that's what I
Mm-hmm.
see. I think the Vikings are trying their hardest to get a rookie quarterback right now,
Yeah.
like with the trades they're making and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. Like,
Yeah. But I just think because you talk about like the depth of wide receivers, but you also can just look at the depth of quarterbacks in the class. And I think that again, like Bo Nix, McCarthy, and Penix are all guys of like similar tiers that I think could put up pretty similar results, and so it's like I think similarly you could like think that, oh, I guess I don't get McCarthy, but Bo Nix or
Bo Nix
Penix,
has similar stats to Caleb Williams, so that is true. That's true.
and so it's like how like so I think it's this kind of mindset with because if you're thinking, oh, there's so much receiver depth, I can wait. There's also a ton of quarterback depth that you also could theoretically wait for, because like you said about the Zach Wilson, Trey Lance class, that's a lot of quarterbacks, and there's a lot of busts in that group. But then there's a lot of quarterbacks here, so it's a tricky.
Yeah,
But,
I think Bo Nix is a strong argument there. Like that's a realistic guy I could see also go in the top 5 by virtue of a team trading up to get him. And that's my answer to this is like JJ McCarthy's only going top 5 if a team trades up to get him.
yeah.
I don't think he's going otherwise, like given the current structure. But like I think with JJ McCarthy specifically, like compared to Penix, teams would be scared off by the injuries.
Yeah.
With JJ, like you could see solid growth happen from year to year, and plus he has a rushing upside that Bo Nix doesn't necessarily have to a certain degree. Not saying Bo Nix can't run. I'm just saying JJ McCarthy has it at an elite level for a quarterback that you want to tap into. They've used him in the running game and whatnot.
Yeah.
And for a team like the Vikings, like Kevin McConnell is like a quarterback guru. Like he will ink the most out of Josh Dobbs. Like what do you think's gonna happen if he actually gets a quarterback with like talent? Like sorry, that was way too disrespectful to Josh Dobbs.
Yeah.
Like with like legitimate upside that JJ McCarthy has. Like and you could probably say the same thing about Bo Nix, but I think on the ground, like McCarthy may offer a little bit more. Not to say that Bo Nix shouldn't deserve to be picked in the top 10. There's so many quarterbacks that have the talent to do so. But like, if I'm a team placing my bets right now on a quarterback not named Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels, it's JJ McCarthy for me.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how McCarthy plays out. I feel like his college tape was probably the most hit or miss for me, at least in terms of like production. But I do see. I mean, all these guys are rookies, obviously, so they have insane upside. Just like Anthony Richardson last year, just like Zach Wilson many years ago. It's like all these guys. Like these are still. I don't really think so. But there's at least one Zach Wilson truther out there. And so.
Yeah, Jets fans. That's what I'll say.
Not even
Jets fans before he trust me, there were a couple that said he was better than Justin Fields. I've heard it myself. So
the Jets organization thought that.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. But I mean, I think this is a slight outside shot, just given because they're in like the middle rounds.
Yeah.
But like Denver and Las Vegas, I would never count out. Maybe New Orleans. I was thinking maybe Seattle before they made that Sam Howell trade. But I don't think they'll make those moves. So like there's like 5 teams that I could see trade up in this draft for quarterback. It's the teams that need one. But it's like Giants, Vegas, Denver, Minnesota, and then what was the 5th one? Maybe Tennessee. Maybe Tennessee is not sold on Levis, and it's like, let's draft a guy, have him compete with Levis, may the best man win or something like that.
Yeah, and I know Tennessee, didn't they just bring in a guy too? I mean, he's not like a great guy, but like another.
Yeah, they did. Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, and so I mean, obviously Mason Rudolph isn't like a superstar by any means, but he played all right for the Steelers, and so it's just kind of another level of competition that I think fits kind of like a gap year if Will Levis sucks.
Yeah, but it's like, to me, like looking at their comparing them, it's like they're having a mid off almost. I'm like, do you really want that? Like it's kind of like a mid off at quarterback. Great surrounding cast. Like I'm super high on Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard. That's going to be a great combination.
I think Will Levis gets like a Desmond Ridder year of prove that you can be the guy this season, and then we'll move from there.
Would you really want to move from this quarterback class though? Like I know Shadur Sanders is coming, and I know there's a couple talents that are coming as well that are not getting up buzz because they're a year out. But like, I'm just saying the offensive talent in this draft, especially from like quarterback to wide receiver, that might be too hard to pass up on this. Like, let's just give Will Levis another year. Like,
yeah, I mean, you look at last year's quarterback class was pretty like exciting too.
look at Jordan Love. Like, the Packers were like, we can't let this guy go just because we have Aaron Rodgers. We have to pick him in the first round, and that looks, as a Bears fan, that looks to be like a significant hit right now. So
yeah, I mean,
like,
it wasn't even a high first round pick though, is the thing, and so it's kind of like, oh, this is a guy that we think is good.
I don't
The
think it
20
matters.
spot.
I really don't think it matters. Like, sure, trade down, but like, I think with the way the quarterbacks are getting hyped up, it's like, would you want to really risk like trading down, just nabbing one of these guys, or just grabbing them at the spot you're at? You know, you're gonna get one of these like 5 quarterbacks. Figure out what you have in Will Levis. If not, figure out what you have in the other guy. May the best man win, or something like that.
Well, I mean, if you draft a guy, you're not going with Will Levis.
Maybe we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like, history proves you're right with like Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts, and everybody like that. And in my opinion, I would do that if I'm Tennessee, because I'm not confident in Will Levis. Like, I think Will Levis needs a lot of development. Like, I don't even think he should be the starter right now. And maybe they're trying to make Mason Rudolph the starter, but I think that's a bad strategy. So if it was me, just looking at like talent on talent, I'd rather have the draft pick than like the 2 quarterbacks on Tennessee's roster.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, in answer to the question again, if JJ McCarthy's going top 5 for me, it's going to be because of a trade up.
Yeah,
like,
well, it has to be a trade.
Or if like New England and Washington like overvalue him significantly over like the other like non-Caleb Williams quarterbacks.
Yeah,
which I'd be surprised by it, because like I think it's really like a Williams and Jaden Daniels, but like, yeah, no, hometown hero here, JJ McCarthy to the Bears at number 1. Man, I would be so conflicted if that happened. I'd be like, we traded Justin Fields for what? Yeah, I mean, but they did it with Trubisky, so you can't. That's the 3% you can't rule out with the Bears. So point taken. On that note, I somehow always bring it back to the Bears, and we're gonna close it out by saying thank you guys for watching. Follow us on our Instagram at I'm on a mission. Wrong spot. There you go. Amon.a.mission on Instagram, and you can follow us at YouTube by hitting the subscribe button, turning on those post notifications, turn the bell on, so you can get some more zesty content from us. But at Amon A Mission. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. Peace.